edge loops and panel loops. Alright, so let's go into Lightbox, go into Project, go into here. Let's choose the default cube, turn off perspective. Okay, let's go into Geometry, and let's back that down. Let's delete higher, and turn on Polyframe. Now I'm going to try to explain this a little bit better as far as using maybe a third-party app just to kind of show you what I'm talking about with edge loops and panel loops. You do not need to know the third-party application. It's just I'm going to be using it as a demonstration. So this is Maya. And what I'm going to do is just create a polygon primitive cube. Okay, so an edge loop is going like this. Okay. Now an edge ring is a little bit different. So an edge ring is taking this edge, control right click, to edge ring utilities, to edge ring, to edge faces, to faces. So that's an edge ring right there. And an edge ring can contain edge loops. Now surfaces can have an edge ring. If I take a surface, that's called an extrude. Okay, now I have an edge ring on the outside that can contain edge loops. Control R will insert edge loops into the edge ring. Okay, so that's the terminology. Now why we do this is to separate out faces or make new faces or improve topology on a mesh. Now in Zbrush, how we do this is like, let's say I grab this face right here. Control and Shift, and I just want these faces. Unfortunately, the faces behind it are showing. Display properties, go double, and you can see that. So Control Shift Alt will hide those. So if I want a surface, an edge ring going onto the surface, I can just simply go into Geometry and go edge loop. Now I'll do it and then I'll undo it, because see what happens? It extends it in and softens it. So if you do not want that to happen, you hit crisp and then you hit edge loop, and there it is. So there is a little tiny edge ring around here that can contain edge loops. Okay, and here's a demonstration to why you would do that. Let's take this, hold Control Shift in that area, and then you'll find down here below deformation. And I could take size, and let's say I take the size and go like that. Control and Shift. You can see now I have moved that out and made a whole different shape. Okay, let's just practice this a little bit. Let's go into Geometry and go into Edge Loop. Yep, Edge Loop has occurred. Let's try to hide the rest of these selections. Now this one's a little trickier because, as you can see, the edge loop, if I hold Control and Shift, I'm trying to get only this selection, which is a little hard. So I had to hold Control and Shift over the little tiny part to get a hold of this one. And under deformation, again, I can go to size, and then I can size maybe that one down. And I have this. So that's the advantage of it. Now a panel loop is a little bit different. So if you want a panel loop in an area, it's just a fancy way of saying two edge rings, in my humble opinion. Okay? Let's just do that. Initialize Zbrush. Let's go through the light box, polyframe, lower it down. Okay, first off, I'll hit Control W to make a polygroup. That's law in order for the panel loops to work. And then I could say, how many loops? Well, I just want one. And let's go in here and hit panel loop. It says it cannot be applied to a multi-level res mesh. So that's another major difference is you always have to get the delete higher out of here before panel loops work. So panel loops not only add it, but it will polish any surface that the loop doesn't have active on it. So in this case, this is what it made. Now if you do not want the polish to occur, you could just go to polish 0, and I would highly recommend getting triangles out of there too. Oh, there it is, polish 0. So if you look really close, yes, it did about the same thing. But in this type, it beveled it in a little bit. Okay, so it's added 2 edge rings to the current area and then beveled it in a little bit. Now if I went to divide this mesh, you can see it. Okay, so whether you use edge loops or panel loops in your workflow, that's basically how they are applied to a mesh. Enjoy. Also included in this is group loops. Group loops and panel loops differ in one thing. So if I hit panel loops right now, it's going to panel loop around every item in here. Okay? So if I went like this and hit panel loops, everything gets a panel loop. Alright, so I'm just going to undo that. If I just wanted one item to become panel looped, I can use group loops. So hold Control and Shift. That way you can hide the rest of these. And then I can say loops, polish is 0, and group loops. And there we go. It just group looped that one poly group. And if you play your cards right, you can go in here and maybe edge loop that one with crisp on. And then maybe you can go in here, go to display, choose double, that way you can see both sides, and you can faintly see a blue line here. That's Z. Okay, and a reason I have that is I have floor on, so I can see this line coming up. That means I can go to the deformation palette and go to size and take Z and go positive. Now this means positive when it's pointing in that direction. And there we go. We have an extrude. A very difficult way of extruding a piece of geometry. You could have done that in a 3D application. Pretty easy, but that's how it's done in Zbrush. Now that you have that, you don't have to leave Zbrush that much. Enjoy.